to start? And I guess that's Rakishan's signal. We're recording in progress. So thank you again for many of you who are joining us again for our Data for Change workshops. If this is your first time, welcome. We are recording these sessions and we are going to be making them available on our website if you or your colleague would like to review this after the session. And all materials presented will also be uploaded to the website as well. So I'm just going to hand it over to our speakers, Shireen and Nicole, to take us away on the workshop. And again, welcome and thank you again for joining.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kosal. Good afternoon, everyone, and hello. Thank you for joining us today for SHIP's second workshop for the Data for Change Capacity Building Learning series. Today, we'll be learning about data equity and building impact, and we thank you all for being here. As we do with all of our presentations, we like to start with a land acknowledgement in support of navigating and guiding us to a collective impact, and also recognizing that June is National Indigenous History Peoples Month. Land acknowledgement is our commitment from the heart. We stand on Turtle Island, which is home to the Indigenous peoples that have embraced Mother Earth in cultivating teachings and encompasses all of the lands of what is now known as North America. We gather today as settlers on this land and from what's many parts of what's now called Ontario and give respects to its first inhabitants. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which Services and Housing in the Province, or SHIP, operates, which is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. In particular, we acknowledge the territory of the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Neutral, and Ojibwe Chippewa peoples, the land that is home to the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We acknowledge that Dufferin County resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tianantati and Attawataron. We also recognize that Waterloo Region is situated on the treaty territory belonging to Six Nations of the Grand River. This territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum. SHIP operates on lands covered by Treaties 4, 13, 18, and 19. We acknowledge and commemorate that our privilege to work and live on Turtle Island today and in future is a direct result of historical and present hurt, exclusion, and assimilation of Indigenous peoples. Turtle Island means connections deeply rooted in earth and spirit, and how we must be mindful and actively participate in our own and in each other and the land's growth. Action takes investment, care, and intention. And our intention today is to support the continued learning for the Data for Change Capacity Building Learning series by leaning into building impact. As settlers, we recognize our positionality and privilege in which we honor and will utilize in supporting a foundation rooted in a commitment of developing and embracing strong connections with you all in support of our Indigenous communities. Indigenous elders' teachings emphasize a holistic and community-centered approach to change management, prioritizing relationships, respect for tradition, and long-term well-being over solely focusing on economic outcomes. The key to all things and the aspects include involving those affected by change, recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, and adapting to change while staying grounded in cultural values. Wade Davis notes, change itself does not destroy a culture. All societies are constantly evolving. Indeed, a culture survives when it has enough confidence in its past and enough say in its future to maintain its spirit and essence through all of its changes it will inevitably undergo. I will close through honoring that our strength is interwoven in our ability to guide each other through the waters of change and in the unwavering support we will offer to one another as we all navigate and fight for social justice and health equity within our community. We must never forget, ne jamais oublier, thank you, merci, and miigwech. And I'll now pass it on to Kosal from Find Help 211 Toronto to speak more about our project objective and the Data for Change project model.
Thank you, Nicole. That was a lovely land acknowledgement and really anchoring and opening our space for this morning. So thank you, or this afternoon rather, but thank you so much for opening up in that way. Just for folks, and I won't take too long, I often do in the beginning of these sessions for those who are joining us for the first time, just an overview of our role as Find Help hosting these sessions for the sector on behalf of the sector and with the sector to really bring together a collective learning journey that we are hoping to cultivate across our sectors. So if you're joining us for the first time, just wanting to remind folks as well that the project objective of the Data for Change is to really test the social identity data collection methodology among many of you who are collecting or working within your agency. And so how do we best understand that is through practicing together, learning together, and hopefully learning and iterating the tool together. So as you can see, we are here to support agencies the best way we can with our partnerships with SHIP, Logical Outcomes, and CASA in different capacities and different roles within this partnership. Our role here is to collect social identity data, either across your agencies and how you do it and how you want to practice it. But this is a learning space for that to happen. And then using, and hopefully many of you are hoping to use the data and data equity that we collect to advance the change in outcomes for many equity deserving communities that we all serve in our sector. Then finally, to start to socialize many of the tools and methodologies and best practices and collect them across the sector and this annual journey that we're going through together, and that many of you can help us continue to refine the tool that we may all want to use in the future together. So that really is what we're hoping to do, is to practice, to learn, and to measure and to better serve our collective community that we call the community social services sector. Next slide, please. We've done this in various iterations, and this is the third iteration of our pilot. The Data for Change model for this iteration is really a community engagement and an agency-led initiative, where CASA will be leading the community of practice, or many of you would come to a session to kind of talk through, learn through, and practice with us at the community of practice tables. SHIP, as for example, today is leading the capacity building leadership sessions that allows us to kind of take it a more facilitated learning, traditional learning models of a webinar kind of session that allows us to kind of hear how an agency practices the social identity data collection within their agency. And then finally, we have Logical Outcome that is here to also teach us in a more formal way and in kind of the best practices from a measurement, evaluation, and data collection methodology. And then they're also hosting next month their learning series. And together, we are building a knowledge mobilization hub, which is the virtual hub that has been launched. And later on in the session, we will be sharing that knowledge hub, which Find Help hosts and kind of uploads all the learning for a centralized place for many of you to access after and during these learning sessions. Next slide, please. These sessions are staged throughout the year in various 4 stages, with the first stage just being completed last May, and now we're into the second stage, which is really looking at the various stages of data collection. We have stage 1, which was to plan and build. We're here now in stage 2, which is to collect and store data. Stage 3 and 4 will focus on the areas of analyzing, interpreting, and then the final stage being sharing and using. So as you're either a lead in your organization or working within data collection or working within social identity data collection, we're hoping that this is something that you kind of incorporate into your organization, even from a development stage of learning, progressing, collecting data, and then sharing it out with community. And we hope that this design model is something that can be phased out also within your organization as you learn. So without further ado, I'm going to take us into stage 2, collect and store, and welcome our speakers for today and our leaders and teachers for today, which is SHIP, Nicole and Shireen. Please take the floor and walk us through our June session of the Data for Change workshop.
Thanks so much, Kosal. Appreciate the information and how it's going to guide what we're doing together for this time until December. We're very excited to be here, a part of this foundational pilot. And for those who have not met me previously, my name is Nicole Bruscato, and I go by the pronouns of she, her. I'm the manager of Central and Taken Access at Services and Housing in the province, or we're also known as SHIP. I'm also a registered social worker with the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers, and have been with the organization for 17 years in various capacities. However, the passion about data equity has followed throughout my entire career, and I'll pass it on to my dear colleague and friend, Shireen, to introduce herself.
Thank you, Nicole. Hello, everyone. My name is Shireen Ramprasad. My pronouns are she, her, and I have the privilege of being the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Manager at Services and Housing in the province. I have been with the organization for almost 19 years now and have had the ability to see our organization grow and to help grow our data equity work that we do at SHIP that we're going to share with you today. So, without further ado, I will pass it back to Nicole to get us started.
Thank you so much, Shireen. I'm so grateful to work alongside you and learn from you every day. So excited to be working on this together. So our guiding principles for today's learning, which will provide us with a common understanding of how learning today can benefit us all in the collective impact of building impact through data equity, will be that we're going to be holding space for one another to learn and grow. This may be the first time that people are learning about data equity or data for change, and so holding space for that, embracing and acknowledging our own and each other's vulnerability, being encouraged to practice what is learned, will agree to disagree, and will be present. We'll get out of this what we put into it. We'd also like to hold space to guide our presentation today after a great recommendation from an attendee from our first workshop in April. Recognizing that some of the content through our presentation and throughout this learning series can be difficult to hear and truly impactful, as it may be different from our practices or hearing about the inequalities and inequities that people are experiencing that further perpetuates health inequities and social injustice. We want to honor self-care and well-being and appreciating that we are all doing hard work together, while also recognizing the need to be kind to ourselves as we learn. And as we move through these workshops, we're going to pace ourselves as there is no rush. Step away when we need to. Breaks are are encouraged. And practice self-care, whatever that may look like for you. And just know that you're not alone, that we're in this together. And with that being said, and it's been noted by COSEL as well, that the session is being recorded. So you'll be able to pause and return later if needed, catch up on anything that you might have missed, and engage when you're ready. Today's objectives for this learning series is collecting and applying inclusive data, implementation of a data equity training program, and then bringing it all together for next steps. So we just wanted to, again, reintroduce ourselves of who is SHIP. So in the case of anyone who was not with us in April, Services and Housing in the Province, or we're also known in the community as SHIP because we love our acronyms in the nonprofit sector. So we are a nonprofit accredited with exemplary standing through Accreditation Canada, a housing and service provider for over 30 years, serving the regions of West Toronto, Peel, Dufferin, and most recently Waterloo. Our mission is that we work to support those with mental health and addiction challenges to increase their quality of life and live to their full potential through safe, affordable, community-based housing and services. Our vision is that of quality housing, services, and lives. And like I said, we all love our acronyms. We have another one. We're guided by our values of CHIRP: C for compassion, H for hope, I for inclusion, R for respect, and P for professionalism. We're also highlighted as the best nonprofit employer for diversity, equity, and inclusion by Charity Village in 2023 and the Canadian Nonprofit Employer of Choice in 2024. SHIP has an approach and framework that we have developed over the past few years regarding equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it's really about moving away from performative allyship and aligning to meaningful action. We've demonstrated this as an organization through integrating EDI into our culture, values, and setting goals and commitment to acting on SHIP's EDI action plan and articulating the measures of 29 activities for deep, meaningful change in the areas of our people, having our workforce be broadly reflective of the community that we serve, our community, having our workforce be inclusive for all, and our systems, identifying and addressing barriers within organizational systems and processes. And we hope that this will be evident in our presentation that we're sharing with you today. So why is SHIP here today with you? We recognize that we may not represent all organizations and/or other sectors joining us today. However, we believe that health equity and social justice are translatable. Coming together and learning supports a united stance on how we can move forward the collective impact in data for change. Lastly, we recognize that we're not experts. However, we want to share experience in how building impact within your organization and community and learn from you as well. So now I'm going to pass it over to Shireen to talk about collecting and applying inclusive data. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, so if you were at our first workshop, you know that we love to engage with you, and we like to do that through Menti. So if everybody has their device, their phone or a tablet, or you can also do it on your computer and just put in the code, go to menti.com and put in the code 6414-8852, or just scan the QR code and it should take you to our Menti. So I'll give a few seconds for everybody to get set up onto Menti, and then we'll get started with our first poll. Thanks, Nicole. It's also there in the chat for you if you are on your computer and you want to do it that way. I see people are joining, which is great. Okay, so let's get to our first Menti poll question. So very simple. Is your organization, to your knowledge, to the best of your knowledge, collecting client demographic data? So this project has all been about collecting sociodemographic data from our clients. And so we'd like to know and kind of set the stage for our conversation about SHIP's experience with collecting data to see how you are, if you are collecting some of this information as well. Oh, so we see quite a few of you that have joined the Menti poll are collecting data. So we have 15. We have 3 that are not. Nobody who's unsure just yet. So we'll give it a few more seconds because I think there's 22 people on here. So if anybody else wants to put in whether or not you're collecting client demographic data, that will really give us an idea. And the majority of us are in some way collecting information about our clients. Okay, I think we stalled there. So we do have a majority that's collecting information about our clients. So let's go to our next slide, which is the second part of this Menti poll. Now that we know that the majority of us are collecting this information about our clients, we want to know why you think it's important to collect client demographic data for your agency. Why is your organization collecting client demographic data, and why you think, as on behalf of your organization, that it would be important to do that? And this is open text, so you can put in sentences, you can put in as many responses as you want to. All right, so we see some stuff coming up. To better address needs and improve programming, most definitely. For advocacy reasons, understanding the communities that we serve, most definitely. To best serve the relevant populations and advocate accordingly, yep. Helping community with the information and understand their needs, doing a needs assessment, address nuance and intersectional issues, absolutely. to understand who we are and aren't serving. Yes, who's at the table and who is not at the table is what I like to say. And how do we then understand what we need to do for that advocacy piece to get to bring people to the table in a way that's safe for them, to understand who we are working with, to adapt our work to these specific communities, and then to know our clients better, to see trends and gaps to be better, and then identify inequities in services we provide. We will have all of these responses for you on the hub once we have completed our session. So you'll be able to see, I know on the screen, we can only see some of them and we're not able to move it. So we'll make sure that everybody has access to the responses. So thank you, everyone, for getting us started with knowing who we are at this table and why we're doing what we do. And it's really important because we're going to share with you, as Nicole mentioned, we're not experts. We're just here to share with you our experience in collecting and applying inclusive client demographic data in a way that we have been able to build impact in our organization with. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So thank you for participating in those polls. Next slide, please. So along with that question, we ask ourselves that question of why collecting demographics matters. Why does it matter to SHIP as an organization? And why does it matter to our profile in the community and the way that we serve our clients? Client demographic data assists us in connecting and aligning the unique needs of our clients and those intersections that are based on their identities. It enables us to better provide services tailored to meet those needs, which many of you responded to in the poll with the same kind of perspective. The goal of us collecting client demographic data is to improve care in a broader scope. The data can be a powerful tool in dismantling systemic barriers that exist for clients within our services. So when we spoke originally, when Nicole talked about our EDI action plan, you see we've broken up our EDI action plan into our people, our culture, and our systems. That was very intentional because we recognize when we do things like this, collecting information about who we serve, we can also have a great impact on our systems. The systems that create the barriers that, sometimes are not within our control, we can have an impact. But the more we know about the inequities that exist within our services, we can be able to start dismantling those within our own organizations and then have an influence on the system that has created those barriers to begin with. Next slide, please. So how do we use demographic data at SHIP? We use demographic data to identify inequities, to develop policies and practices that speak to those inequities. We review, and last workshop, and you'll find it on the hub, I shared our policy review equity assessment tool that we use to review our policies. So this data that we are collecting about our clients also informs our ability to use that tool in order to build equity into the policies and practices. We can use the data that we collect to be able to give us information about what direction we should be taking and how we can dismantle the inequities that exist in our policies as well. We want to monitor and evaluate our interventions. It's always really important that you always go back to the data, and you'll see a little bit more about our data when Nicole kind of demonstrates for you our tool with data collection. But we want to go back to your data and continue to evaluate the effectiveness of the things that you put in place, the effectiveness of your services, any kind of change management protocols that you put in place, anything within your policies that you've shifted or changed. You want to be able to evaluate whether or not they're working, and are they having the desired impact that you intended when you put that change in place. It also helps us to hold ourselves accountable for improving outcomes. We want to be accountable to the community, and we want to be accountable as an organization to the clients that we serve. And so having this process around collecting inclusive data and doing it in an equitable way that is inclusive of the people most impacted helps us to provide that accountability to them. And then, like I was saying, facilitating system level changes, guiding the way in which we advocate within the systems that we operate in around equity. Demographic data can be used to inform prevention, intervention, and strategies to protect human rights. And I just wanted to mention that when we're talking about this, what we're talking about today and what I'm telling you are parts of what we inform staff about in our training session. So we use a lot of this information in our training that we'll talk about in a little bit as well with the staff within our organization to sort of set the framework for everyone around our data equity project at SHIP. Next slide. So why asking about demographics matters? And this just kind of goes back to that idea of, the people, the system, the people, the culture, and the system. But this is the way in which our demographic information that we're collecting really does have an overall impact at various different places in the organization. For clients, they feel better understood. They're welcomed and included in the process of their care and of the service that we deliver to them. For staff, there's an overall picture for staff of those who we serve. They're better able to build relationship and trust with the clients that they're serving because they have a framework to better understand who it is that we're serving. There's also with our program and we'll go into it a little bit more, of how we collect demographic information, it reduces the documentation burden for staff. Everybody is very busy and we have very important work to do. And I know our frontline staff are very busy building relationship with clients, and sometimes having too much documentation to worry about as well can be a challenge to staff wanting to collect this information. So we have seen a marked improvement as our process enables us and enables staff to reduce that documentation so it isn't a hindrance for them in building these relationships and in having these conversations. And then as a system, it is a continuous quality improvement measure. So as an organization and potentially as leaders in your organizations, we can look at this type of process as being around continuous quality improvement. It also enables SHIP to be advocates for health equity and justice. Social justice is very important in our field, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And we give you some information about what type of organization we are and why we collect the data that we collect. And then certainly for consistency and alignment within the system. Many of us are operating in systems and have partnerships that are serving mutual clients in the same community, people in the same community. And so having something like this where you collect information in an equitable way about the people in that community allows organizations to maintain consistency and alignment with each other and with community. Next slide. So another poll, hopefully you all are still on, but just as a reminder, Menti is, how to get on Menti in your laptop is in the chat, and then we'll start the poll for those. It should still continue to work if you've been on it. The other thing I wanted to say is if you aren't able to access Menti, please feel free to put your thoughts into the chat as well. So we'll take a look at the chat also. That might be easier for some or just more comfortable. So please go ahead and put in the chat if you can't get onto Menti. So the next question is, what sociodemographic data points would be important for your organization to collect? So what are the things that potentially the ones that you're already collecting for those 16, I think that had said that they are collecting demographic data? What are the ones that are the most important for your organization to be able to improve service delivery, to be able to speak to the identities of the clients that you serve, or to be able to identify gaps and inequities? What do you think are the important pieces? Do we need we might need the QR code back. Are people still, I think people are still on. So you can go ahead and put in your responses. So an example might be age, knowing the age of those that you are serving so that you can differentiate what types of services for youth and seniors might be something that your organization wants to pay attention to. Awesome. So we're getting some responses now. So we have language and age range, invisible and visible disabilities. I love seeing that. Very rarely do we see, when we talk about demographics, do we see people mention disability and invisible disabilities at that as well. So fantastic. Kudos to that person. Racial group, gender identity, age, sexual orientation, annual income, most definitely. Cultural considerations, accessibility, there's somebody else. Background, language, gender identity, pronouns, sexual orientation, country of origin, year of birth, postal code, yep. Ethnicity to ensure staff can serve clients in culturally competent ways. Income to understand what benefits clients are eligible for, most definitely. Immigration status, very important for some of us, especially depending on the communities that you're serving or the type of work that you're doing. Income level, racial and ethnic identity, gender identity, social orientation, age, education level, English language level, and disabilities. Fantastic. So those are many of the sort of data points, the sociodemographic data points that are important to organizations like ours and to organizations like yours. Family status, yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for your answers as well. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so we're going to get into more specifics around SHIP and our organization as a health service provider, why we collect the social demographics that we collect and all of the data points that we collect. And we're going to anchor it with a video, a very short video around the social determinants of health.
Even before we're born, there are factors at play which influence our health and well-being. The conditions in which we're born, grow and live can affect us and our health in different ways. We also react to them in different ways. Poverty, stress, lack of adequate housing, education, unemployment and poor access to transport and nutritious food are some of the things that can affect our health and life expectancy. The World Health Organization recognises that health and well-being are strongly influenced by social, economic and environmental factors known as the social determinants of health. The environments in which we are born, grow, live, work and age can have stronger influences on our health than our genetic, family history or behavioural risk factors. A person's social and economic circumstances affect their health throughout their life. The relationship between income and health is on a gradient. This social gradient means that even a little bit of wealth can increase your likelihood of being healthier. A stable source of healthy food, appropriate, affordable and secure housing, education and employment, relief from financial distress, access to transport and services, loving and stable relationships, and being able to make choices about our lives means we are less likely to experience chronic conditions such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, anxiety, and other mental illness. How we are treated by and interact with others also has a huge impact. Stressful circumstances over a long time that make people feel anxious or unable to cope, discrimination, racism, social isolation, or just being treated as less than equal can lead to poor health. And the interplay between these factors and a person's socio-economic circumstances can compound the situation. Experiencing a lot of stress and feeling unable to change things can also lead to poor health. But as health clinicians, there are things that we can do to make a difference. Look beyond the illness to see the whole person and try to understand the reality of their daily situation. Ask them what they think would make a difference to their lives and really listen. It may be that taking care of their health in the way you suggest won't be easy. It may make things more stressful for them, so try and see what other support you can offer. Advocate with them and give them knowledge on where to turn for help. Offer transport options for people to come to your service. Consider food vouchers to families who are struggling, or talking to nutritionists who can work with people to cook a healthy meal on limited income. Offer education about making better lifestyle choices to encourage healthy eating. But remember that all the advice on good nutrition will be a challenge if people are living on a limited budget. Offer medications for longer periods of time for people who can't get to a pharmacy easily. and refer people to other services like counselling or housing assistance. Help improve their health literacy by encouraging and working with them to better understand their illness and be more active in their own health care. Even one small action, like really listening and being compassionate, can go a long way to improving their health. Changing your practice, even ever so slightly, might mean the world of difference to someone.
Thank you, Nicole, for playing the video. We wanted to start with that video because we wanted to show you the type of data that we collect about our clients and how we use that data in a very simple way. We are a health service provider, first and foremost. So we do share this health equity lens, and we do collect and look at sociodemographic data as the social determinants of health. But our hope is that you also saw in that video aspects of data that you are collecting as an organization. Despite whatever service that you provide, we all have a common commonalities because we are part of greater systems. We are part of systems that are about a person's holistic life. And so even if you replace health with whatever you're providing, whatever system you belong to, data about people, this sociodemographic data, all are data points that can help us build impact for the clients that we serve in various different ways. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole now to go into a little bit more around the type of data that SHIP collects.
Thanks so much, Shireen. And just like you said, the video is always a great reminder for myself on how much we can and be and make the difference for people in which we support, the organizations we work in, and communities we're within. We want to share with you the data set that SHIP collects for our clients. We've been collecting client data for over 18 years as part of our multi-sector service accountability agreement, or also known as MSAW, with our provincial funders. We also want to highlight that this is pertaining to adults. At first, we were collecting under 10 data sets known as common data sets, or CDS, which focused on basic demographic data on community mental health and some information on outcomes. We submitted our data twice per year, and about 290 mental health service provider organizations submitted their data to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. In 2021, the Ontario Mental Health and Addictions, MHA, Provincial Dataset, PDS, was initially conceptualized with the first version released in November 2021. As an organization, SHIP had to work alongside various departments and with our client record management system provider to ensure that we could align our systems for the updated mandated data sets we now needed to collect. Shireen and I co-developed our data equity team with our data management analyst in support of this direction to level up staff training and leadership understanding and support, so that this could be a collective impact on collecting the data, not only because we were mandated to, but because the people we support are clients. They matter and they are the foundation of what we do. Nothing about me without me. Shireen will go into more detail on the implementation of a data equity training program, which highlights our step up in creating a data equity culture within our organization. The data sets shown on the slide are not grouped in any specific way, just more visually so that it's not a long continuous list. As you can see, we are now mandated to collect 24 data sets for each client that we support. And they are date of birth, birth sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, country of birth, citizenship status, year of arrival, pre-existing condition or conditions, veteran status, highest level of education, employment status, income source, total household income, relationship status, number of people the income supports, residence type, legal status, Indigenous status, primary and additional ethnicities, religion, language, preferred language of service delivery, preferred official language, English or French, and Francophone status. As you can see, these data sets are really speaking about the social determinants of health and recognizing potentially childhood experiences, housing, education, social support, family income, employment, our communities, and access to health services. The collection of these data sets really helps to capture and tell the story of a client individually, but also as a collective in recognizing who we are supporting and who we are not, so that we can really lean into our EDI practices and our organizational value of inclusion. And so we're not saying that you need to collect all these data points. That's something that you'll have to determine as an organization what will really help to align yourselves with your community and how you're supporting the community and recognizing that. But these are just things that we are doing at SHIP, also part of our mandate. But as I mentioned, it really helps to tell the story of who we're supporting, who we're not supporting, and maybe where we need to align our training and leveling up staff confidence in asking the questions. Sorry about that. So this slide is a visual of SHIP's business functions in which we support the navigation of our service delivery. The functions with an orange check mark either collect, analyze, or store client demographic data. We have just over 500 employees at SHIP, which all play a part in our EDI framework and data equity work. Our housing and homelessness, clinical health and wellness, and housing development and innovation functions all collect the data sets with over 400 staff supporting the work in various capacities. The same business functions, along with EDI, or Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Department, Strategy and Risk Management, and Quality and Privacy, analyze the data sets, and Quality and Privacy, along with Information Technology, support with storing the data in compliance with regulations. This all wraps up into our strategic plan as we utilize, recognize, and highlight the client data sets to adapt, build, and create building blocks for a better tomorrow. This slide helps to visually map out where we ask the social determinants of health and where it is collected at SHIP. We've carefully reviewed the data sets required to collect through our internal intake committee, our EDI committee, client and family program advisory, and ethics review committee, and determine through these discussions and feedback which data sets to collect at which points of service delivery. So it really is that collective impact and collective stance coming together with multiple areas of the organization for the common good of really having the client showcased and included in the work that we do. We collect the information at point of application through the intake assessment and at every 6 months of service delivery and upon end of service. This helps to tell and highlight a client's experience and story while honoring who they are and who they wish to be. Having these data sets really supports with the continuity of service. So when the next stage of support is happening, there are key points for staff to reflect to ensure they are identifying clients in which they wish and not what we assume. This helps to create and promote a welcoming, inclusive, and an open organization where clients will want to access their service and be truly who they are. This information gets stored into our client record management system, or otherwise known as CRMS, which then goes in live to our client demographics data dashboard. We'll be showcasing our dashboard in the next few slides. A question that has come up in the previous workshops is how we protect and store data overall in the sector. And so we're sharing what we do at SHIP. We're committed to support our communities, clients, staff, and fiduciary responsibilities in a manner that is ethical, efficient, effective, and transparent. To achieve this, SHIP ensures our systems meet regulatory sector and certification requirements with an established infrastructure with defined operational policies and processes with a commitment to continuous quality improvement, or otherwise known as CQI. Like I mentioned earlier, we love our acronyms in this field. We also have a quality management system, or QMS, which is designed to be proactive, that utilizes analysis to address undesirable trends and to adopt best practices. SHIP utilizes statistical concepts, risk management tools, and an internal quality audit tools to ensure timely, corrective, and preventative actions to ensure alignment, again, with regulatory, sector, contractual, and certification requirements. As SHIP is a health information custodian, also known as a HIC, SHIP is committed to ensuring all client information and client health information are stored, secured, controlled, and protected against theft, loss, and unauthorized access, use, and/or disclosure. SHIP compiles the privacy statutes, regulations, and practices such as the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act and the Personal Health Information Protection Act, or otherwise known as PHIPAA. Only authorized SHIP personnel may access client information and only for the purposes of providing service and/or support to the client and/or related business purposes. Client records are maintained using our client record management system, like I mentioned earlier, CRMS, as described previously, and in compliance with the acts in Ontario as discussed. The system that we utilize, again, is CRMS, and so there may be different tools that you're using at your organizations. All SHIP personnel will ensure that client information is confidential and only share with authorized persons only for the purposes of providing authorized service and/or support with the client. Our organization embraces the quadruple aim of supporting population health, resource accountability and sustainability, and the staff and client experience. We use an interdisciplinary quality oversight approach led by the following teams: data equity, quality council, ethics review, quality initiatives and projects, key performance indicators, and our information technology team. So we're going to showcase a live demo of our client demographic data. And so this is just overall for the organization in the information that we collect. And we came together, Shireen and I had this grand idea. Wouldn't it be lovely to see all the information at once of an organization, or specifically for a program, of who we're serving, who we're not serving, why are certain questions not being asked, where do we need to align our training, and how to support staff in collecting the data, but really, again, the true intention to make sure that clients are feeling included and welcome in our organization. And so we came together with our data management analyst through the quality and privacy department, talking about our big idea. And Sajin, who is the data management analyst at SHIP, said, well, how about we use Power BI, where it will talk directly to our client record management system, and we'll be able to showcase it in a dashboard so that visually we can see all of the information, because without this dashboard, we do have access to reports, but it's in an Excel form. It's quite extensive, and it's visually is not really inclusive in the information when we're trying to look at it all together. So I'm just going to switch screens here for a second. And Shireen, I just want to make sure, is it showcasing okay? Perfect. So as we noted, we have many different areas that we're collecting the information for. And so all of our leadership has access to this. As on the second page, we can go further into our programs and then showcase which staff may need to look at the data set points for their clients to make sure that they're aligned. And so we often have questions, even internally, why do we call it alignment as opposed to compliance? When we're talking about people, compliance doesn't really help to navigate and really showcase why we're doing this. It isn't about compliance. It is about aligning ourselves with our community and aligning with their needs. They are helping to tell the work. Again, nothing about me without me. So we use alignment rates. So you'll see it says alignment. And so our organization right now has actively 1,000 clients. And our alignment rate of the data that we've collected, where it's either the data set is plugged or it's also saying that the client has been asked but has declined to provide the information, showcases that we're at 90.59%. So we're one of the highest organizations within the MHA PDS of the collection of the data set. And really goes to showcase how a data equity training program works in making sure that we are also showcasing our commitment to this. And we are really excited about this tool, and it's really been a great reflective measure of working together. And so you can see the different areas here. So there is that visual mapping to really look as a data equity team, for example, Sajin, Shireen, and I, where, okay, we're not so aligned with veteran status or religion. What key areas can we help staff so that they feel comfortable and confident in asking the questions or making the offer, which Shireen will also go a little bit more into depth as well. This doesn't include our clients on the wait list, which is over 2,600 people, as that is showcased on a separate dashboard so that we can align with who we're supporting on the wait list, or as known as applicants. And then we also have this dashboard, which shows clients. And then we also, sorry, I just want to make sure that it's highlighting all of the organization here. Yep. So this will also showcase for each data set what the selections were highlighted as or entered into the client record management system. So with these pieces here, it's really helpful to see, okay, these are the individuals that we're serving or in the community. Do we need to look at partnerships with any other organizations if we don't have that support on staff or the expertise on staff to really support the alignment with our community? So this has been a really great tool that we utilize in supervisions, that we utilize within our leadership meetings. We use it for requests for proposals to really tell the story live. And this gets updated every hour. So information as it's being put in, we get the updates every hour. So sometimes there will be fluctuations in the percentage, but it's really helpful that it is a live, excuse me, or as live a tool as possible. I see some questions in the chat, so we're going to answer them towards the end, just so that we can get through the presentation. And so I just want to note that we're keeping note of that. So thank you so much. We really encourage the participation. So I'm just going to come back to our presentation here. And I'm now going to pass it over to Shireen so she can lead the conversation on the importance of building a data equity program, and if we're asking the question or making the offer.
Thank you, Nicole. So just of interest with the dashboard, it took us quite some time to get to that point of having a dashboard. This isn't where we started. Nicole and I have been working at SHIP for a really long time, and we certainly didn't have these tools when I first started at the organization as a frontline direct service staff. And we certainly didn't have access to be able to see the data the way that we're seeing it with our dashboard. So I just wanted to say say that because it can be very, I mean, I personally am very proud of the work that we've done and of having the dashboard. And we've seen the impact of having a dashboard and having this way of visualizing our data. We've seen that it's impactful in how staff even view the information and data about clients, as well as our leadership and how we make decisions and how we view our services. So it's very useful and we're very proud of it, but this is by no means where we started. And similar to what Nicole talked about when we were originally mandated through our funder, the Ministry of Health, to collect CDS information. So it was only 10 data points. And it was really, at that time, we even found that challenging. There were times where we found that challenging to collect that information and to use it appropriately and for improvement. So when PDS happened in 2021, there was that challenge. As you see, we have to collect, and we collect 24 different sociodemographic data points about clients. So when Nicole and I first started this data equity program, we talked about this quite a bit. Like, how do we build capacity with staff, not just around what we're collecting and what we have to collect, but around how we do that and how we use the information, so that staff get that sense that we're not just asking questions for the sake of asking questions or for the sake of our funder. We are asking questions because we actually care about the people that we serve, and we want to improve and ensure that we're serving them the way that they need us to. And that requires a little bit of work on our part. We recognized in doing that some of the challenges that we had in collecting this information was really around making the assumption that everybody knows how to do this, that everybody's just doing it, that it's a natural course of what we do as staff within the organization or as people within the helping fields. We made the assumption that it's comfortable for everybody to talk to their clients about these data points and to ask questions about a client's very personal information. So we took a step back and we thought about, in my experience as a frontline staff, when I did direct service work, it wasn't comfortable for me either to ask some questions. It wasn't comfortable for me to talk with clients, no matter how long I had had relationship with them, about sexual orientation or about sexual expression. Some of the things that are on some of the assessments or on some of the tools that we have, they weren't comfortable for me either. So why are we making the assumption that it's comfortable for everyone just because you're in a helping field? And that's where we started, recognizing that we have to build comfort and we have to build capacity. And that requires sometimes training and opening up space for conversations about that discomfort and about the ways in which we can do this without necessarily having it be a checkbox. And that's something that's very important at SHIP. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our data equity training program that we developed in order to do some of this capacity building. And it's also helped us to really move that alignment needle. When we first started, we were at a little over 50-something% alignment. And in 6 months, by implementing this training program, we were able to move that and build confidence in staff to move it to the 90% that you see now. So we have evaluated the effectiveness of developing a training program. And you don't necessarily have to do what we're doing, but this is just an idea of what our thinking process was and how we developed our training program to meet the needs of our organization when it comes to data collection and the use of data. So our data equity training program, it's a required training for all direct service staff, administrative and leadership teams. So we have made it required. It is not an option because we think that this is important enough. And we are all, as Nicole alluded to, we are all a part of this data equity culture. Everybody in this organization has a role to play when it comes to client service. back office, professional services, finance. We all have a role to play when it comes to serving our clients. So it's important that we all also recognize the importance of data equity. We're all collecting data. Everybody at SHIP collects data about clients in some form. And so we felt it was necessary and important enough as an organization that this training that we provide is required for everyone. The training itself reviews 3 important areas around data equity. We talk about, and this is where Sajin, so Nicole, myself, and Sajin are our small but mighty data equity team. Sajin is our data analyst, and so Sajin talks about in the training the technical aspects of data collection, and that includes navigating CRMS, what the data points are that we're collecting, but also what some of the prompts that may come up that indicate to staff when they are inputting data into our data management system that you haven't put in and that you put in an incorrect data point, or that you haven't put in a data point, or that it's not valid. So Sajin reviews all of those technical aspects, because many staff, sometimes it isn't that they haven't talked to their clients or asked questions, it's that they haven't put it into CRMS correctly. So we felt it was important that we also speak to that in our data equity training. The other piece of our data equity training is linking the demographic data to the social determinants of health. That's why we started with that in this workshop today. We are a health service provider, and so all of this data, there has to be meaning behind it. When we get to know clients and when we understand who they are and their identities, they are the social determinants of health that we're speaking to. And those are the pieces that as an organization, we have to use through our health equity perspective in order to improve service delivery for clients and reduce inequities that exist within our systems. So our training also includes how each of those demographic areas that we have to collect is actually benefiting the client, and we're using that information to the benefit of the client. And then finally, we discuss the why of data collection, how it can have impact on service delivery, on system levels, on our cultures and organization, and on the clients that we serve in the community, and what we do with that information. So we go over some examples of how we are have been able to use client demographic data, especially given that we have very, very valid data because of the system that we have. How we have been able to use it to benefit, secure funding, make different proposals for different communities. And that's one of the things that we thought was important in our training, that staff are aware that you're not just collecting information for no reason or because we have to, because we're mandated, that there is actual benefit and that you are making a concrete difference in the lives of people in the community. And then finally, in this training, we also felt it was important and dedicate a whole section of the training to discussing how we collect information. How do we collect sociodemographic information? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that now with you, because we think this has been a difference maker in our ability to align ourselves and to reach sort of that 90% and above, hopefully, around our data points. The difference between asking questions and making an offer. Go ahead, Nicole. So, do we ask a question when we're collecting data, especially sociodemographic data? So there are different ways in which we do this. And yes, if we're looking at our application, like Nicole mentioned, we do have these questions on our application that people complete. So in that way, at our application stage, people are providing us information on our application that are in the form of a question. But when we have built relationship with our clients, so when a client is in service with us and we are continuing to build relationship with them, it can become very challenging to actually ask in person with a client that you're trying to build rapport with some of the questions that we have to ask about. We want to use that empathetic approach, and certainly we all have the skills and helping fields. We all, I think, at some point or another in our work, we've developed those motivational interviewing skills, and we all kind of focus on those types of soft skills when we're working with clients. So that's the best place for us to start. And we let staff know in the training that you start with what you know, what you're already doing. We're already doing this. We're already getting to know clients every time we go on a visit, and we visit clients, and we do case management, we do counseling with clients. So every time you have interaction with clients, you are already started in this work of getting to know them, which is what we're trying to do when you're collecting sociodemographic data. There's also the other side of it where clients may be uncomfortable with sharing about themselves. So there's some discomfort that you may be sensing from clients that is also impacting you as staff in how you go about asking these questions or getting this information. Requesting information like this from clients can make them uncomfortable for many different reasons, including culture, stigma, stereotyping, anxiety, and if they're experiencing, in our case, as a mental health and addiction service provider, if they are experiencing current symptoms. We want staff to remind clients and remember to have the conversation with them that declining to answer or declining to talk about any of these areas is absolutely their right to do so. And we want our staff to also know, and we state this explicitly in the training, that if a client declines to answer any of these questions, or when you're having conversations, doesn't want to talk about it, that isn't a reflection on you as a staff and whether or not you're doing your job. It is a reflection of the client's right to privacy and right to build continuous trust with you until they are, if they ever are, comfortable sharing with you. And some clients are impacted by some of the things that I mentioned here. You know, racism, experiences of racism and discrimination in our health system are real for many of our clients. And so they may be hesitant to provide us information that they think will not be used to their benefit. And if you attended our first workshop, I talked a little bit about that scientific racism and that historical significance that still has an impact on how people experience when we ask them questions like this. So we ensure that in our training, we really establish that for staff. It isn't a reflection on you at all, but it is our job to try to build that trust and build that comfort for clients to know that they matter, their identities and how they wish to have their services delivered matters to us, and to continue to try in many different ways. So that's the first part of asking the questions or making the offer. Next slide, Nicole. So asking the questions or making the offer, what do I mean by that? We encourage staff to, instead of, feeling that discomfort, if you are uncomfortable asking questions about a person's gender identity, their ethnicity, their race, their veteran status, all of those 24 items that you saw that we have to talk about with clients and collect information about, if you are uncomfortable asking those questions, reframe it into an offer. Instead of asking a question, open up space with the client to say, listen, I'm here to talk about what you want to talk about. I'm really interested in getting to know you better and what your needs are. Do you mind telling me a little bit about where you're from? And we can talk about the things that you may need and the ways in which I can better serve you and better provide you service based on those unique features about yourself. And then we encourage staff to explain the why we're talking about this, why it's important for us to understand who clients are, what their experiences are, and how those experiences may be impacting them as far as their work with us or even in the healthcare system. So we encourage staff to have conversations and recognize that it isn't just a checklist of data points that we're trying to get in any given time. We also talk about in the training, and I'm sure this might be the case for many of your organizations that are mandated or required to collect certain information for your funder, that there are timelines associated with the collection and input of data. So for us, it's every 6 months we audit, and we are required to audit every 6 months. But what we talk about with that is that you're just required to put in information into CRMS as you get it, as you have it, as you build trust. There are options in our questions or in CRMS around there's an option for client declining, for client not wanting to answer. There's also an option for if you do not know yet. And we ask that staff, if you're still building trust and the client is not comfortable providing you that information, you can check that off. That the client has declined, they do not want to answer. But what we ask is that you re-engage as you build more trust and as you continue to have these conversations and make the offer of safe space, that you continue to re-engage with the hope that they will at some point be comfortable enough to provide us that information. And there is no timeline on that. The timeline is really that you have a data point checked off. But if the actual answer, the actual sort of identity feature for the client or sociodemographic information that the client gives you, if that takes you 8 months to have that conversation and build that trust, then that's fine. When you do have it, then you change it in CRMS, and that's how we approach it. So don't feel pressured within this sort of, false timelines to have to always try to answer did not ask or did not that do not know. We prefer that you put that the client declined until you're able to build trust. So we talk about that in our training as well. Next slide, Nicole. So I'll pass it back to Nicole to bring it all together.
Thanks so much, Shireen. Appreciate all the information. I always really value and respect how you frame it in. We often talk about like we're asking the questions, but again, really framing how to support making the offer from that inclusive stance, and also having the client feel comfortable throughout this and not expecting an answer for them because we have to, as we're mandated to collect the data as well. So in bringing this all together, really want to look at our key takeaways from today. So our client demographic data assists us in collecting and aligning the unique needs of our clients based on their identities. The goal of collecting client demographic data is to improve care in a broader scope. Demographic data can also be used to inform prevention, intervention, and strategies to protect human rights. So one example that we did at SHIP with a collective stance of other mental health and addiction organizations across Ontario was changing one of the data points was originally named or titled Aboriginal status. And so we collectively came together as a united front advocating for it to be changed to Indigenous identity so that we were more inclusive and supportive of our Indigenous communities. So that was one key area where we're protecting the human rights, but we're also protecting their identity and bringing forward things to the ministry, to our funders, when things are needing to be updated to reflect their communities. And then also our commitment to training staff and to ensure the common understanding of the importance of collecting client demographic data. So again, we do a retraining for folks. We encourage the dialogue. We encourage people to retake the training if they needed to, even if they've been with us from another training 6 months ago or whatnot. And again, that's from top down, bottom up. We really encourage, and it's part of the mandatory training. And we have different elements to make it so that people feel comfortable. It's a safer and braver space so that people will come forward and support one another in the collection of that data. And we also take best practices and sit with our funders every month to learn more about the project elevating and advancing, as in the next year, there may be different data sets that we have to collect. And so how do we make it make sense within our organization and learn from other organizations in the sector as well? So that's the end of our presentation, and we have some time for questions and comments. And see that, Shireen, thank you so much for answering in the chat. There was a question to clarify, sorry, alignment is whether or not a client has been given this piece of information, which we were showing in the dashboard. And Shireen replied that alignment is whether the staff have entered a valid data point for the client, and that she would explain further, or also that element of the client declining to answer, but that is considered as an aligned rate to support the inclusivity of how they want to identify themselves to the organization at that time.
So if you saw in our dashboard, we had, we're 90% alignment. So there's 10% that isn't aligned. And what that 10% tells us is that those are responses that have not been entered into CRMS. So if you enter into CRMS that the client declined to answer, or that like there, I forget the option. What is the other option, Nicole? Is it do not know, or question, or has not been asked? If you enter those options in, because that's the actuality, you haven't asked the questions, you do not know, or the client has declined, it still comes up as aligned. Oh yes, prefer not to answer. So it still comes up as aligned because you've entered a data point. And that's accounted for in the data set. It's accounted for in the dashboard. That 10% means that the question hasn't been asked, the client hasn't been made the offer to even have the conversation, and that to us is more important. That we have 10% of, there's 10% of those questions are not being asked. So we're not offering clients the opportunity to talk about those elements of their identity. And that's what we focus on as far as quality improvement. We did that intentionally because one of the things that we were finding initially, even with CDS, when we were just collecting the 10 data components, was that people would just put in, I think at the time it was the client declined or something like that. And they would put in that response, and that would be their go-to when they hadn't asked anything. And so that's why we built the training the way that we did, to improve the comfort level of staff in having those conversations, but also to ensure that they knew that if they put in a response, even if you are not sure, you haven't had the conversation yet, you put that response in, it's still going to show up as aligned. And then our expectation is that you continue to try to have those conversations, and that at any time, if it changes where the client wants to talk about it now, then you change it at that time. It'll still be aligned. You will still see it as aligned and in the dashboard. The other piece of that is that I know we couldn't show you the second page of the dashboard, but that second page is the one where you can go and search by staff and their caseload. And we couldn't show it because there's privacy issues, because it does have the staff names. So managers and supervisors can use that second page to walk through with staff the clients on their caseload, what the alignments are, what areas potentially they are not aligned, or they haven't input information, or they've put in, I don't know, or question not asked, and work with them to build their comfort and to just to figure out why. Why is it that we're not getting that information? Why are we not having these conversations? So we built the dashboard that way on purpose as well, so that staff could be invested in their clients and in the information that we're talking about from clients.
And I think it really helps to showcase where Shireen and I are coming from 17 and 18 years within the organization, where we only had a few data sets in each element to select, where if someone answered, we didn't even have prefer not to answer. We had unknown or data sets. But now we've come as an organization recognizing the importance that someone has the right to not provide us that information, and honoring that and creating space for later on in their service delivery. How do we develop that rapport and comfortability that hopefully they will eventually feel safe and comfortable to showcase and highlight their true identity to us? So those are some really great questions there. Was there anything else from Find Help side that might have been sent as a private message that we could answer during this time?
Not at this time, but I just think there's some comments on the side there, just from the comments you just made.
Yeah, so the prefer not to answer is, it will show aligned. Hopefully I've explained that fairly well. As long as you put one of the valid checkbox items, like when we see that in CRMS there's drop downs, and as long as you choose a valid option, it will show on the dashboard as aligned. So that 10% I was talking about of unaligned is where there has been no option chosen, or an invalid option has been chosen. So
Some really great feedback in the chat too. So thank you so much. It's always helpful to see that it's being well presented and well received as well. Just want to, and again, if there's any other questions, please feel free. I just wanted to also share exciting news that the Data for Change Knowledge Hub is live. So please take some time to go over the website at dataforchange.ca to learn more about this shared digital hub for resources and connections on social identity data in the community social service sector. The hub also has information on where you can register for upcoming workshops. So the next one with Logical Outcomes, and then our community of practice with CASA, and how to download the slide decks from all the workshops and the video recordings.
yeah, so Julie just put a question just really quickly. Did you say that the data goes directly from your electronic client record into Power BI? So Sajjan, magician that he is, has built that back door and that connection from CRMS into Power BI. So he built the dashboard to take information from CRMS. So you'd need to be able to do something like that. You'd need somebody to be able to kind of make that connection point between whatever your data management system is and Power BI. So Power BI is just, it's software. So I know we consulted with another organization that asked to meet with us and had some questions about that. And Sajjan gave some really good advice around how to go about doing that. And you can kind of, and I'm not an expert, but you can YouTube it. They have some fairly good videos on YouTube around using Power BI, and then adapt it to your data management software. So I think that if you're interested, and certainly if any of you have any other questions or you're interested, you can always connect with Nicole and I as well. Outside of this, we're more than happy to chat with you. Are staff able to access the dashboard? Is that another question? Yeah.
So it's,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
it's
Nicole.
through our leadership team, and they go through the dashboard with the staff individually through their supervision. And then that first page and third page that I showed, we show at our team meetings collectively, because the second page, we don't want staff to see other staff's unalignment rates just for their own privacy and protection of their performance measures. So that is something that we'll showcase separately when we're doing those supervision meetings.
There is a fee. Coastal, thank you for putting that there. There is a cost to using Power BI, but it's I think that if there's an investment or if there's a need, like we didn't have Power BI a few years ago. We didn't have that tool at our disposal either. We used Excel and we used CRMS reporting, and it was very challenging. So it's something that you might want to build up to, certainly, and make an investment in. You'd have to certainly budget for. But as an organization, as we built our data equity tools and we started to pay better attention and saw the outcomes and the things that were possible and the impact that we're having as a result of this, we made the investment into Power BI. But yes, certainly we were using Excel sheets as well. So it's very, very possible. I think part of and hopefully what we've shown today is as we've grown as an organization and built capacity, having tools like Power BI and having these dashboards have been the right move for SHIP, the right approach for SHIP. And we will continue to ensure that that investment into, Power BI costs quite a bit of money. That investment pays off in our ability to improve our service delivery to clients. And so we think that it is a sound investment to make, and that we will be able to use it in many different ways. And we have been able to be honest with you. We didn't go into it today, but we also have dashboards for each program to be able to streamline documentation and to streamline assessments. And each staff has the ability to see all of their documentation and all of their work in one place. So we have dashboards now through Power BI that help with managing workload, which has been it's a game changer. So we're not saying that, you have to make the investment, especially if you don't necessarily have the resources to do it. We're saying it's an option that has worked for SHIP, but we have built up to this point. We've built up to making that investment over time. Is that it?
I think so. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat, but I'm just making sure. Thanks. So thank you, merci and miigwech, everyone, for your time and openness to learn about building impact for data equity. We appreciate you all. Look forward to seeing you again in August, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.